Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Ruben Kronig of Vineyard Time on Martha's Vineyard. And today I want to take some time to talk about the Tudor Black Bay. The Tudor Black Bay is an incredible watch, but to understand it fully, you have to first understand the Tudor Watch Company. Tudor watches were founded in 1926 by Hans Wilsdorf, the creator and founder of the Rolex Watch Company. And they were founded to fill a void that Rolex left. Rolex watches were known to be durable and dependable, but they were expensive. And the Tudor brand was founded to make a watch that was durable and dependable, just like the Rolex, but for less money. What they did for much of the line was create sister watches to the Rolex brand, where the cases were stamped Rolex, the bracelets were stamped Rolex, the crowns were stamped Rolex, but they had an outsourced movement instead of an in-house movement. This allowed the Tudor watches to be less expensive than their Rolex siblings. Unfortunately, this also led to Tudor watches being considered sort of a poor man's Rolex. This really isn't a fair assessment, and when you fast forward to the Tudor Black Bay, I'll explain why. When the Tudor Black Bay was originally launched in 2012, Tudor wanted to separate themselves from being known as the poor man's Rolex, and they wanted to be seen as their own brand, even though they were still a sister brand to Rolex. So, they launched the Black Bay. The Black Bay no longer said Rolex on any of the parts, and it used an ETA 2824 movement. Totally respectable. Fast forward slightly to 2016, and the Tudor Black Bay launched with an in-house movement. This is revolutionary for the model. So let's talk a little bit about what makes the Tudor Black Bay so special. First is styling. The Tudor Black Bay is elegant and stunning on the wrist. But what does it look like? Well, Tudor did a great job of making the cases look very much like the early Rolex and Tudor Submariners of the 1950s. Later Submariners featured crown guards and continue to do so today. You'll notice there's a protrusion around the crown that guards it. But the earliest subs didn't feature that. And if you look at the Tudor Black Bay, they did a really nice job of modernizing those early Submariner cases with the Black Bay. Additionally, you look at the dial and you look at the indexes. You'll notice that the Black Bay indexes look very similar to those early subs. Yeah, they're raised markers, which is really elegant, the applied look, but they have a very similar shape and feel to those early subs. They have the gilt dial, which again is a beautiful look and gives you the feel of that classic heritage. Now the hands, Tudor did something a little bit different for. The hands feature the snowflake hand. The snowflake hand is something that Tudor launched and used throughout the 1970s in the Tudor snowflake models. It's classically Tudor. Whereas the case is sort of a Rolex Tudor hybrid, the hand is classically Tudor. And Tudor was looking for ways to make the styling be Tudor specific, but also honor and respect the heritage that they had with the Rolex brand. I think they've done a really wonderful job. Take the bracelet, for instance. The bracelet on the Tudor Black Bays features a riveted design. Now, we haven't seen this from Tudor or Rolex since the 1950s and 60s. It's a beautiful look. And while the Black Bay riveted bracelet isn't a true riveted bracelet, the aesthetic is there, and it's beautiful. So, there's a few different Tudor Black Bay models. There's a few different colors you can get it in, and there's actually now a Tudor Black Bay 58, which is a 39mm version instead of a 41mm version for sort of the vintage purists out there that might want something that's a little bit more traditionally sized rather than the bulkier size that we're seeing today. Okay, so why should you consider the Tudor Black Bay? It is worthy of your consideration for so many reasons. The Tudor Black Bay is $3,800 with the bracelet. A comparable Rolex Submariner is going to be $8,000 to $10,000 on the bracelet. It is not half the watch. In fact, in my personal opinion, the Tudor finish, the Tudor quality and details is very close, if not as good as the Rolex. And let's keep in mind they're sister brands. So even though the Tudors are no longer stamped Rolex, because the new Tudor has an in-house movement, there's a very good chance that some of the parts in manufacturing is either being done by Rolex themselves or by Rolex staff, which gives it even more appeal when you look at the fact that the Tudor is almost half the price of the Rolex Submariner. If you look a little deeper and you look at the in-house movement, it's an incredible movement. The in-house movement features a chronometer certification and a 70-hour power reserve. If you look at the 2016 Rolex Submariners, they didn't have a 70-hour power reserve. This is incredible. Tudor's really working hard to forge their own identity as an independent brand, but they've done an incredible job to honor the heritage and connection they had with Rolex and their own early watches. Those are some of the reasons why I think the Tudor Black Bay deserves your attention and deserves a second look. It really is an incredible piece that has vintage styling and has heritage components with modern quality and modern technology. Thanks so much for tuning in. Let us know if you have any questions. Feel free to post them below. Talk to you soon.